If you think Breaking Bad is just about a chemistry teacher who starts cooking meth, well, you'd be partially right. But you're actually missing half the story. Today, we're gonna take a look at the massive financial mistakes that cost Walter White everything, and more importantly, how he could have easily avoided it all in the first place. Picture this: a brilliant chemist turned high school teacher faced with a cancer diagnosis and a mountain of medical bills. Tough circumstances for anyone to face. Walt didn't have anything to leave for his family after he eventually passed away. So how did he choose to solve the problem? To start hanging out with this guy, and to start a DIY crystal meth operation.
Yes, science!
But wait a second, what if there was a simpler, much more legal option that Walter overlooked? Before Walter ever created blue meth, and even before he was diagnosed with cancer, Walter made a decision, or rather a non-decision, that cost him everything. That decision was to forego a valuable life insurance policy. For someone as smart as Walt, missing out on life insurance seems like a pretty basic oversight, right? But with a simple life insurance policy in place, Walt could have secured his family's financial future without turning an RV into a rolling meth lab. And depending on how much life insurance death benefit was, Walt easily could have set his family up with more than enough money. And even further, some life insurance policies even offer the option to access a portion of the death benefit early if you're hit with a terminal illness, like Walt was. That's right, Walt could have potentially funded his medical treatment without ever breaking a single law. Life insurance is usually step one when it comes to families' financial planning. But here's what's actually crazy. 48% of Americans say they don't have any life insurance at all. Life insurance can actually be pretty inexpensive if you stick with a simple term policy. Now, if you're young and you don't have anyone that depends on you, you're probably fine to skip life insurance for now. But if you're married, and especially if you have kids or others that depend on you, or even if you have some debt that needs to be paid off, you'll definitely want to grab at least a term life insurance policy to make sure that your family is taken care of if something happens to you. So our first finance lesson from Breaking Bad is don't underestimate the power of being prepared, because you never know what could happen in the future. Life insurance might not be the most thrilling story, but it certainly beats the alternative dodging bullets and dealing with crackhead drug lords like this guy.
Tight, yeah!
Now, before Walt ever became a chemistry teacher, he actually was involved in a tech startup with a couple of close friends called Gray Matter Technologies. Walt was pivotal to the founding of the company and their original ideas, but due to personal reasons, Walt decides to walk away from the business and sell his shares for a whopping $5,000. Fast forward a few years, and the company is now worth billions. With a B. Walt could have been on a big boat with a B filled with money had he stuck with his initial investment. This is a mistake that cost him an absolute fortune. Here's what's crazy. I see people make this same mistake all the time, just on a smaller scale. Remember, investing success is more about the investor's behavior than it is about picking the right investment funds. A wise investor will be patient when it comes to owning equity in a company, and treat ownership in a company as a long-term investment. Warren Buffett has famously said that our favorite holding period is forever. The real returns from equity in companies comes from growth over decades and not immediate returns, like apparently Walt was expecting. So stay patient with your investments and keep contributing to them, especially in down markets. The other issue that we pick up on Walt's decision to divest from Gray Matter Technologies is there were definitely some personal issues going on here that most likely contributed to Walt's ultimate decision to sell his shares. It's really important to not let personal disputes or emotions get in the way of your financial decisions that you might regret later on. Find a way to separate your feelings from your financial emotions and decisions, and always consider the long-term implications of your actions. A good way to do this is to seek out a trusted financial advisor.
First step is something we like to call money laundering,
who can help you make those key decisions and remain objective with their guidance. Okay, on to the next major mistake that Walt makes. After Walt developed his signature blue meth and teamed up with Gustavo Fring, Walt was basically printing cash at this point. He was making so much money he didn't even know what to do with it.
We got in there, cinder blocks.
$500,000 in cash.
But he knew he didn't want anyone to steal it either, so Walt decided to bury it in the desert, only for Uncle Jack to figure out where the money was and take half of it for himself. Now, I don't know what his options were when it came to storing ludicrous amounts of illegal cash, but what I do know is people like you and I definitely have much better options when it comes to storing our cash. But some of you don't act like it. Now, in real life finances, Uncle Jack can come for your money in different ways. But one way that a lot of us are struggling with today is inflation. For example, I had a client that came to me recently and he had almost $100,000 saved up, which is great. What's not great is that it was all sitting in a savings account that was earning him a whopping 0.1% APY, or $100 a year. Inflation over the last few years has been anywhere from 3 to 7%. At least that's what the government tells us, so it easily could be double that. So if you have a bank account with Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or even Chase, you might take a look at what your interest rates are yielding to you for starters and see if you can take advantage of at least a high yield savings account. There are tons of banks offering around a 5% APY on savings accounts right now, which would make my client about $5,000 a year compared to his $100,000. But for most people, they don't even need $100,000 in savings accounts for expenses or even their emergency fund. There are definitely much better options to put your money to work, but one of the best and easiest ways to protect your cash from inflation is to get your money into diversified ETFs. The stock market has been a proven method to combat Uncle Jack, aka inflation, from eating away at your money. Here's an example of the S&P 500 over the last 30 years compared to inflation over the last 30 years. As you can see, the stock market can be a very useful tool when it comes to fighting inflation. But whatever you do, don't bury your cash in the desert, aka a low yield savings account, so that Uncle Jack, aka inflation, can come in and steal your money. But those were the financial mistakes that cost Walter White everything in Breaking Bad. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my other video where we find out if Michael Scott from The Office is actually a financial genius or not, right over here.